Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to your Ep.30 Draft to Glory franchise mode here in NHL 26. So last episode, if you did not catch it, we made kind of a controversial change to the roster, which some people didn't agree with, other people obviously did agree with, but I think we made the right decision, and obviously I'm excited to see how that decision impacts our team this season, because we did let go of long-term defenseman Dave Antonio, so our defensive core is a little bit weaker than last year, but honestly, I don't think it's that much of a decrease that it's going to make us similarly bad, because you can see obviously Paco a 91 overall. He's still fantastic. Lee is a 90, is a very nice piece to have as well in our top four. Orcourt's actually been kind of surprising as an 86, so he's almost kind of more of like a high top four, I would say, over a medium top four. Then we also do have Pau, obviously, who's kind of taking Dave Antonio's spot as an 81 overall at 19. I expect this guy to get hopefully some good growth throughout this season and years to come, and probably get up to like an 83, 84, or even higher than that, and maybe he could become an actual medium elite defenseman. Aside from that, we also do have Polak making the NHL, which is quite exciting because this guy never got to play in the AHL, but he looks like he's going to be a pretty exciting offensive defenseman for us. So excited to see what he could potentially do in his rookie season. We have Maltby as our depth defenseman, and Ullman will also be playing on our NHL defensive core. He's pretty much ready to go, and he's another shutdown DFD, just like Dave Antonio was. So I'm kind of hoping that he'll fit out well, being on the top six next to Richard Polak, and we'll see if those two could have a good rookie season. So I think it's kind of nice having a little bit of injection on our defensive core from the AHL, because the AHL team also did win the Calder Cup, so it should be an exciting season for that. Aside from that, we also do have now our 1-2 punch of Forster and Simic, which is basically a starter and an elite goaltender. So I'm not too sure if obviously Forster will be coming back at the end of the season or not, but I'm kind of hoping he will, because also Gotch is a pending free agent this year, and he's going to be kind of running as our third string goaltender in the NHL. But you can see we do have goalies in the system as well that eventually will get some growth. So we are probably going to have to replace some of these guys at some point in time. Aside from that, our forwards are looking pretty good. There is a couple new guys jumping to the NHL from our forward side of things, those being Rankin, who did play in the NHL a few years ago. And then we basically send him down for a few years in the AHL, and he's been getting better every single season in the minors. So he's going to be a huge player to add to our third line this season. And he has some really good face-off stats, really good offensive stats too. So I think he should be a really good player. And hopefully eventually maybe he could become a top six player if we do lose Benak, of course. And then, of course, the one I'm probably the most excited for is Marcos Fernandez. This guy obviously was a really, really late pick, and he's developed quite nicely as well. And he was a really good player for our team in the playoffs in the AHL last season. So there's been some pretty good injection into our lineup for the NHL this season, and I think it could help us out a lot in terms of turning this team from being a first-round exit last year to hopefully being at least a conference finals team this season. So I'm excited to see how this team does, and excited to see if we could get far in the playoffs or not. So with that said, let's get you guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll make sure we're set up and ready to go for another season sim. So the first two comments are from Shankly Mania. The first one says, tough decision indeed. Losing Dave is painful as his biggest Finnish fan. Would have loved to see him hoist a cup with us, but it is what it is. Did you hire the goalie coach for the minors? Don't stress about the episodes being longer. In my opinion, they could last even longer than this with thumbs up. And I appreciate that you like the long episodes. The long episodes are probably some of my favorite things to do, but obviously my voice eventually gets sore on it. But I do appreciate that you guys like the long form content. Aside from that, yeah, it would have been nice to have Dave Antonio win a Stanley Cup with this roster for sure. But I think what made that transition a little bit easier for my team is basically the fact that Lee has grown a lot. When I drafted him, I wasn't knowing for sure if Lee was going to become like an actual good top two defenseman, but he so far is looking pretty good. And last season he had 52 points, so I think that obviously has helped out things a lot. Also, drafting Pau, I think, has been a good thing as well for letting go of Dave Antonio, just because I think Pau could develop into becoming a very solid top four, and you don't really need a bunch of top twos in your top four to win a Stanley Cup. You just need at least a good top two pairing, a good top four, and then some average top six defensemen. Like, you don't need the deepest defensive core to win a Stanley Cup, so that's what I'm kind of hoping for with the season. Aside from that, you were mentioning about the goalie coach. We did bring actually back a goalie coach in last episode because I fired him and it got brought him back again because we did readjust our coaching staff a little bit. We did hire ourselves a new head coach. But yeah, we did bring back Peringes as the goalie coach for the minors, so everything is good in terms of how the coaches are set up for the season. Shankly also says, and Bradford should stay up, playing the best players. Your coach rolls all 4 lines, so morale shouldn't be a big deal. Also, any unsigned defenseman left, your cap whale was playing third pairing in Burnaby, could use that spot for a prospect. And if we go to our unsigned defenseman, I don't really think there is anybody that I would use on the unsigned. There is like Blueges and stuff like that. Coley could get a contract already. He's already 20 years old, but I don't really think it's something we really necessarily need to do in terms of signing our unsigned guys right now, because honestly, there's not. I mean, we could just run the current ones. I'm trying to think if I should sign one or not. We already have 46 out of 50 contracts also, so that's a bit of a problem. So I'm probably not going to sign a defenseman, but Cole Leak would probably be the one to sign just because Foligno, I think when we drafted him, he might have been a gem, but I'm not too sure how he'll pan out. Aside from that, Blue just is probably not going to become much of anything for us. So if there was a better prospect here, we probably would sign them. But right now, I want to make sure we have contract room just in case down the road that we need that contract space. Next comment is from Sour Talk, who says, congrats to Burnaby. At least you could say you won something in this franchise mode if nothing works out for the NHL team. Speaking of, I agree with putting Bradford on waivers and calling up Miller for the extra defensive help on the 4th line. If he doesn't get claimed, you could have him buried in the AHL. And so that's kind of an interesting thing still as the Bradford situation, because I was mentioning about in last episode potentially waiving him and sending him down to the minors. I do still like Bradford. The only problem is you could see it this season, he doesn't have a clause, but kicking in next season and the season afterwards, he has a no movement clause. I'm pretty sure no movement clause means you can't send him down to the AHL and let him play in the AHL, so he'd have to be either a depth forward for us next season, or he'd have to be a 4th-line guy for us or 3rd-line guy. So basically, by that logic, I'm not too sure if I should waive him. There is guys like Earl Mullen, who is a pending free agent at the end of the year, that basically Bradford could take his roster spot, so it doesn't really matter too much. Also, Rich Barrett's contract is up at the end of the year, so I think for the time being, we honestly might keep Bradford up here. If obviously he's not playing good, maybe at the end of the season, maybe we'll send him down on waivers and see if he gets claimed, because I think you can claim players on waivers still at the end of the season. So maybe we'll see if we waive Bradford before the season ends officially for every team, and then maybe somebody could claim him. But I honestly think he's kind of a useful player to still hold on to, and I think he can still get some playing time, especially if we end up losing a guy. I don't really know who we would lose technically. Like if Nakamura somehow walks to free agency in a few years too, because he is going to be an RFA at the end of this year, but we might need still some more right wingers there. There is guys in the AHL as well that could replace him, technically like Helmer and Miller and all that, but I'm not too sure if it's the right call for us to send him down on waivers yet. Maybe we'll think about it on January 1st. We'll see how he's simulating, and then if he's simulating not that great, maybe we'll waive him. If he is simulating good, maybe we'll still hold on to him, but it's a really tough decision with him if he should be waived or if he should just kind of stick on a roster. Regardless, like he could stick on as a depth option if we want to instead of Nichols, but I'm not too sure if that makes much sense. Like he might complain about his ice time otherwise, so kind of a tough one to choose on. Next comment is from Mime the Quiet Wood, who says, quite fun seeing the AHL team win the Calder, and the growth of Fernandez and Rankin was a shocker. Excited to see the battle of the goalies between Forster and Simic in the next year or two. I like the picks that you decided on. It felt logical, and it was a bummer to lose Antonio and Andrews. I could see Andrews returning to the team potentially. And yeah, it did suck to lose Andrews as well. Antonio obviously was the big one, but Andrews, we decided to buy him out. And I think that's a decent decision to make as well, because Altman gets a chance to play. And there is other guys that could come up here soon too, like Richardson might be up next season. So it was a tough decision to make with those defenders, but I think it was the right call. And I'm excited, like I said, to see how those guys simulate. Aside from that, though, like he was saying, it is kind of surprising the growth we got from Rankin and Fernandez, because both those guys were like 79, 80 overall in the AHL last season, but now they're both 3rd-line scoring forwards. So it's really good to see them growing well together, because eventually at some point in time, maybe they'll both be top 6 forwards for us when Benak potentially leaves this team, which could come in the next few seasons, as you can see his contract ends relatively soon. So he still might be one of the next big ones to leave on this roster, because we could always run Roger Green and Rankin as the top 2 guys at some point in time. Next comment is from Ragamuffin Gunner, who says, 40 million in cap space and you're letting go of 90 overall players. When are you going to need that money when you're drafting limitations? Makes 0 sense. Could have made him 2 to 3 cap whale at least. I'm struggling to see how this team ends up a cup winner with moves like these. And I know it's a tough decision. You're probably not really understanding what I'm kind of getting at. I think it's important that you let go of players that eventually ask for too much money, because if you have replacements like Powell, for instance, he's not going to want to play on a top six pairing with no special team time. If he does that, he's going to be starting to complain about his ice time, which is going to stunt his growth, and he's not going to become a top four player whatsoever. You kind of need to make sure you're giving these guys ice time as much as possible in terms of getting them the actual development that they need. So letting go of a player like Antonio, who's basically just a defensive defenseman, sometimes picks up points. I think he was just going to be way too expensive, even if it was for 2 to 3 years. Those 2 to 3 years are very valuable, probably for somebody like Pau to take that next step. And also having guys like Lee and Paco already is listed as top twos, I think it's fine just to have two top two defensemen, and then everybody else is like top four and top six. Like, I like to play players in the roles, and if obviously we're playing as a top four defenseman on a top six pairing, I think it just won't do much for him whatsoever. So I think it was important to do that. I know not everybody will agree with me, especially with the amount of cap space we had, but I think it was a smart decision to make. At some point in time, we might end up losing, like I said, Benak, because he's asking for too much money. And in that way, if Rankin's for some reason listed as a second line forward, he could actually get that top six ice time that he deserves. So it is tough to make those decisions, but I think they're actually important that we do that. And I still can't see this team winning a Stanley Cup with this roster, even without Dave Antonio, because, like I said, you don't really need that crazy of a defensive core to win a Stanley Cup, especially when it has great chemistry like this. Like, you just need to have really good chemistry, and you could find a way to simulate well. Like, I expect this team to still do really good this season simulation. Next comment is from Mike Garbrand, who says, Dave will win a cup without this team. Hope it works out, though. You have so much cap room. Could have signed him for a way cheaper deal before the season. Also have him expire the same year as Paco. Then I could see you make that move. So, yeah, he's saying that we could have honestly signed Dave Antonio for the same amount of time that Paco has left, which honestly could have been the case. But I think as well, though, it's important, like I was mentioning before, Pau needs that ice time. Urquhart's already kind of a top four for sure as well. And then these guys needed to make the NHL this season. It wouldn't make sense to me to play Ullman in the AHL this season, considering he's listed as a depth defenseman. And it wouldn't make sense for me to also play Polak in the AHL too, considering he's listed as a top six. So I think it was important to get these guys in as much as possible. And even though, like I said, our defensive core is weaker, we still have great chemistry. So I still expect it to actually simulate well, even though there's no 88 overall Dave Antonio right here. And the last and final comment is from Dylan Burrows, who says, what is the reason for the coach switch? And the coach switch was not really something I had planned to actually do last episode. But then I saw the scheme fit. I'm like, we might as well make a coaching adjustment just to get the coach even better than before. And it does technically make our associates better too, because now technically our coach from last season in Andre Tourigny will actually be the associate coach. So we have better chemistry, I feel like, with all these coaches than we did last season. And that could be a big thing for helping this team out in terms of assimilation, because I think the other associate coach was like a B, and he was like a 50-something% fit. So I think it just makes our coaching unit a little bit more, like, their chemistry is better, and it should make our team simulate a little bit better too. It's not going to maybe make a drastic change, but I do expect it to hopefully do better than it did last season. So we could always swap Walling and Tourigny around if we really want to. Verado was an okay fit too, but he wasn't as good as these two. But I think in general, just this coaching staff should help our team simulate decently. Because if you look at Walling, for instance, can I look at his career as a coach here? He's only coached 2 years in Carolina, both not very good seasons, but probably didn't fit that team super well. But you look at like his scheme fit for our roster, he works well with pretty much everybody on this team, and except for maybe Ullman and all that. So obviously we could still look for better coaches down the road, but I still think this guy is going to be a good player, our coach for us. It says 67% team fit now. Last episode it said 69, but I do expect him to still be really decent enough and help our team in terms of simulating even a little bit better than it did last season. So with that said, I think we're ready to get into the season simulation and see what this team could do. We'll obviously take a look at the end of the season as well, how good Dave Antonio does in Boston, because it will be kind of fun just to see how good he does. I think he'll excel well in Boston because it kind of fits his like physical style a little bit. But obviously, I don't think he's going to be that game-changing of a player. I feel like he's going to be making too much money over there, kind of. But anyways, we'll focus on our current team. Let's do 5v5 focused again, even though our special teams were kind of bad last season. And in season goal, what does he think about our roster? He says we're good enough to compete for the cup. So Both these coaches still think our team's good enough to compete for the cup, even with losing Dave Antonio. So that's where I think our team will still succeed, as we'll still be good enough to win. So for the time being, we'll keep Bradford in the NHL, but like I said, maybe we'll take a look and at the end of the preseason or at the end of 1 month, I'll actually go to the stats and see if Bradford's actually simulating good. And if his defensive stats are really bad, maybe we'll send him down. But I honestly might be okay with just keeping on to him because he's not like making that much. But it will kind of suck to having using him as a depth forward probably at some point in time, just because we have so much depth on our offensive side of things. So let's see how this preseason goes, and then we will take a look at some stats from the preseason and see how good everybody simulated. But this should be a pretty good season for our team. Like I said, Forster is a pending UFA. I don't have a contract for him yet just because I don't know if he should come back next season or not. I would like to hold on to him, but at the same time, we don't really know what our goalie situation is going to look like. So I think it might be better just to wait in case. But 6-2 in the preseason is fantastic, of course. Let's take a look at some player stats from that preseason just to see if there's anybody that over-simulated or under-simulated. And it looks like from a forward perspective, though, we were led by Nakamura. Nakamura had a great preseason with 8 goals in 8 games and 10 points. McElhaney had 9, Benak had 8. Looks like we got some pretty good scoring within our top 9 because even Rankin as a third line guy had 7 points. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what that third line can do. I think we're going to have better offense this year than last year. I just feel like our third line having Rankin and Fernandez makes us stronger, and I think having a guy like Polak to maybe drive some offense as well will help things too. So I'm excited to see how the season goes as a whole. Fernandez only had 2 goals, but I do expect him to do better at the regular season. I don't know if he'll be a colder favorite, but he does have really good shot power, so he can score goals, but he is definitely more of a pass-first type of player. But he did have 14 shots in those 8 games, so maybe he actually is a kind of a hybrid type of production player. From a defensive standpoint, Paco had 7, Lee had 7, Powell only had 2, but +5. Altman and Polak did not work out that well in that preseason, but I do expect them to do decently during the actual season itself. Obviously, it could be a little bit of a liability because it's 2 young defensemen, but at the same time, I do expect them to hopefully work well together considering one's a DFD and one is an OFD. So excited to see what they could do this season. And then from a goaltending perspective, Forster wasn't that great during the preseason in terms of save percentage, but goals against was okay. But Simic had a really good preseason with a 948. I don't really like that Simic's not going to be getting potentially a lot of playing time this season because he's actually listed as a starter. But that's the way we have to do it for now, just because Forster's obviously under contract. And Forster's still one of our favorite goalies we've had in the series so far. So obviously we'll run Forster still as that starting guy for the time being. So let's see how this team simulates. Actually, how did Bradford simulate out of curiosity? Because I don't think I really looked at his stats that much. 3 points in 8 games. That's not too bad. He was +3. I am very curious to see if he's actually good defensively as a 4th line option. I don't know if he's going to be getting the most playing time in the world, so he might complain. But like I said, if he starts to complain, maybe that's also when we could start to think about waiving him potentially if we actually want to do that or not. So anyways, let's do this 1 month at a time. Let's go to the end of October and see how this team is at the start of November. I do expect this team to fully have a great season this season, unless we have some major injuries, of course, which there is an AHL injury right away, which kind of sucks, but we'll just go replace player on that. Wow, we won against Buffalo 8-1 to start the season, but then we lost 7-6 to Detroit. So a great game and then a really bad game defensively. But looks like a little bit of a slow start to the season for our NHL team, but it's okay. It's early on. I do expect us not to go on a major losing streak like this. And we did beat San Jose. What about Nashville? Is Camper's back for Burnaby? Burnaby's already suffered a couple injuries here early on in the year. Hopefully they're not like that all season long, because that would kind of suck. Who was the other one that was injured? It was Bednar, that's right. Okay, let's go back on that. And let's see if we win over Nashville. The answer is yes in a shootout. Retzer's now been injured in the AHL. God damn, yeah, the AHL team is getting swamped with injuries off the start. Then again, they had a really long season last year, of course, winning that Calder Cup, which was pretty awesome to see, just because they came back from a 3-1 deficit over a team that was really good during the season. So very impressed with that. And a lot of those guys are going to be on the NHL team this season. As we're 6-5 in our first month, so not necessarily a textbook first month, but we do pick up 2 shutouts in that first month, which is great. So there is definitely some promise here early on. It's just a bit of a tweener month, but I do expect our team eventually to start breaking away with a lot of wins. So let's You know what? I actually already want to take a look at Bradford's stats just for curiosity purposes. I don't really want to know point leaders and stuff on our team, so I'm not trying to look at this too much, but I just want to see how Bradford's actually doing as a fourth liner, as Rankin and Fernandez are technically 80s. So they aren't as strong as we initially thought, but that's okay. I do expect them to grow throughout the season. Bradford so far is a -4 through 11 games at 2 points. So he's not doing a ton offensively with that fourth line ice time. And he only has he has bad plus minus. It would be nice to give him some power play time, but it's really tough to get people power play time on this team. That's the one thing that I might want to change up a bit at some point in time too. But I'm gonna keep it the same for now. But maybe at January the 1st, we'll think about waiving Bradford if he's not playing good defensively or offensively. And that way, maybe he could get claimed and we could call up somebody that actually knows how to play defense on that fourth line. So let's go to November 30th and see if this team could start winning a chunk of games, as Retzer's already back for the AHL, which is good considering he's, I think, one of the okay prospects down there, in my opinion. So we'll throw him back in. Miller's up to a 78. Yeah, see, Miller's an awesome depth kind of option. He's good defensively too, so that's why I would think about maybe having Miller on my fourth line over somebody like Bradford, is just because Bradford's not a defensive type of player. Bednar's also back for the AHL, so we'll get him in here just because we might as well. So we'll take Locke off there since Locke is a forward. There's no depth defenseman in the AHL, which kind of sucks, but I don't really want to sign any of our prospects because none of those guys are ready to go, really. So still a little bit of a weird start to the year, but that's okay. I do expect, like I said, at some point for us to start taking over, as there's 2 straight wins. There's a loss to Toronto. We do beat Utah 8-6, so we've had some pretty good offensive games early in the season, which is good, but we haven't kind of broken away with the winning streak, as that Grenier guy, who is that filler player, has been injured as well. So our AHL defensive core is getting slapped a bit, but our NHL team is starting to figure out its winning ways, which is good to see. So I don't really care as much about the AHL this season, considering they just won, obviously, the Calder Cup last season. But obviously, there is still some prospects down there that are important to grow, so hopefully they are okay with how they're playing. Guys like Richardson are the most important. And in the goaltenders, there's not really a good forward prospect down there other than, I guess, Kuda, who was that lowly that we drafted a number of years ago as well. So there is a couple prospects, but it's not as deep as it was last season with guys like Fernandez and Rankin. So this is definitely the winning streak I was waiting for. Our team is now 14-7-1. So you always got to trust in the process. Sometimes your team will get off to a slow start, but then they'll start to find their legs a bit. As of course, after I mentioned all that, we've lost 2 in a row. But 14-9-1 at December the 1st is pretty damn good. It does have us technically tied for a wild card spot right now, but it is a good spot to be in, of course. And there's still a lot of season left to go. Let's go to the player stats again here. I don't really want to keep on going back because I don't want to get spoiled on how people are doing. But let's go to stats here. Actually, not this stats. Oh man, Klinga's leading us some points. Okay, I didn't want to know that. I wanted to go to edit lines, not that screen. I kind of wanted to keep it a surprise right till the end of the year, but I just want to see how Bradford's still doing on that fourth line. Only 1 goal in 24 games, but the good thing is his plus minus is only a -1. So I think even though he's not doing much offensively for that fourth line, he's still doing okay defensively, and that's not warranted getting him sent down probably. Yeah, I think he's been okay. I think he's been okay. So we'll keep him up here, I think, for the time being or for the rest of the season. But that means that he's going to be under contract next season and have to be probably a depth forward for us, because I'm pretty sure no movement clause means you can't send him down, if I remember right. Because a no trade clause, obviously you can't trade them, but a no movement means they literally can't send them down to the AHL to play down there. So we'll see what we end up doing in terms of our depth players next season. Some people will definitely have to be in the AHL. Others will probably have to be in the NHL. So let's go to the end of December, see what we're like at December the 31st, and see if we're one of the better teams in the NHL by that point, because this team is definitely doing better than they were early in the year. There is still a lot of regulation losses, but we don't necessarily need to light the world on fire, because if we have such a dominant season, we're going to be an early exit again. So we kind of want to be one of those teams that do good, but not do so good that we're literally going to sacrifice our playoff run. We scored 9 goals against the Ducks. That's pretty insane. So we've had definitely quite a few games where we've scored 7 or more. So I think our offense definitely is probably improving with Polak. I'm not too sure how Polak's simulating, but I think he could definitely help out guys like Paco with the offense from the back end a little bit, as there's a nice shutout win. So we're 22-12-3 at January the 1st, which is pretty solid. Has us still in third place in the Metro, only behind the Flyers and Penguins. In terms of the Atlantic, the Boston Bruins are on the exact same total of points as us. Of course they are. So Dave Antonio went to a good team. Means we might run into him in the playoffs at some point in time, but it's good to see that at least he's making an impact on a team, but he could obviously still miss the playoffs too, that is. But technically, if we were a Western Conference team, we would probably be one of the best Western Conference teams. But since we're in the East, we're kind of in a dogfight right now, but we're still enough on a playoff spot that I think we should easily make it still. So let's go to the end of January, see what we're like at February the 1st, and see if we're still on this good record that we're currently on. We beat Calgary in overtime. Florida's a regulation win. Columbus is a win. Yeah, I think this team's definitely figuring its game out a bit. Like I said, sometimes you get off to a slow start during the season, but then once your team actually catches fire, it doesn't look back. And so far, that's the case really for this team. Like, we've had obviously a couple losses, but we're still winning most of our games. As we suffer our first NHL injury, it is to Rich Barrett with a strained hamstring. So we'll go edit lines manually here because I want to move Mullen to that center spot because he is technically a face-off guy as well. And we'll get Nichols in on the fourth line left wing. It kind of sucks to have to scratch somebody like Nichols because I do like him as well, but that's the type of thing that happens when you get a draft to glory. Obviously, at some point you have to scratch players you like. Sometimes you have to let go of players you like too, but that's just it's like it's a revolving door basically of trying to find a way to keep competitive year in and year out. So kind of sucks to do it, but it makes sense. Like I said, we might even lose Mullen at the end of this season potentially because of the depth coming up. So it sucks, but you have to make those tough decisions. And that's the part of being a GM. It's a business after all. You're not here to make friends, right? All right, game against Colorado in Colorado is going to be a shootout loss. That's still a point. In the Islanders is a regulation loss. So we're 30-16-4 at February the 1st, which has us 1 point back of first place in the Metro. So yeah, we're in a very good spot because we're 11 points up on teams in the wild card right now. So if we were technically in Atlantic, we'd be first place right now. Boston is second place with 61 points. So yeah, us and Boston are kind of similar teams right now. So I'm very interested to see how Dave Antonio's stats look by the end of the season. We should probably look at the box scores from games against Boston as well if we want to, just because it'd be kind of neat to see if Dave Antonio scored goals against us. And then you guys could rip me to shreds about him scoring a goal, right? But yeah, if we were in the Western Conference, we'd be the best team in the West right now. So we are definitely on a strong start to the year. So let's go to February the 27th, I guess, considering that's the day before the deadline. See where we're at that point. But I've been pretty impressed with this team so far. It's just obviously this Eastern Conference is a bit of a war zone compared to the West. We lose to Boston 4-2 there, so who knows? Dave Antonio might have had an empty net goal or a game winner against us, but I could care less if we're going to be a playoff team and if they're going to be a playoff team, as that's a pretty major injury. It isn't long term, but Hromis has been injured till February the 18th with a injured elbow. Let's go replace player on that, or should we go manually? Let's go edit manually. I just don't want to risk, obviously, putting Nicholas or whatever his name is, or Nichols on the top line, whatever his name is. Fernandez could get into the top 6, and then Bradford could get a little bit more playing time as well, which is not a bad thing. And we'll get Nichols into this spot, which would give him some power play time, I think, but that's okay. Just, it's a temporary thing. It's only for like a week or two. It's not going to hurt us, I don't think, that much. So I'll just let Nicholas play some power play time. And maybe he could do well there. Let's actually also go to the strategies because I need to adjust that because it's all set to Klinga. And that's why there is a bug right now. Let's just go to... Let's get a Paco as the finisher on that unit. Sure. Paco is a good shooter, so I'm excited to see what Paco has done for us this season. I think he could definitely still win a Norris at some point in his career, but obviously there's a lot of good defenders out there. As apparently Hromis is already back, so yeah, that was very short term. But that's okay. Let's get Nicholas out, get Hromis back in there, and obviously he go back into that top 6 role. All right, game against Tampa is going to be another loss. So we are on a little bit of a sour note here in February, but obviously, like I said, we don't need to necessarily be the best team in the world, as there's another NHL injury. It's till towards the end of the month. Injured groin for Aiden McElhaney. So let's go edit lines manually again. We might as well just keep on doing it manually so that way we could actually move people up in the lineup that deserve it. Because or else Nicholas is going to be playing top 6 over somebody like Law. Also, I wonder how much fights Law is going to get into this year, if he's going to be a little bit more disciplined like last year, or if he's going to go back to his old ways or not. Because obviously he is our fighter, and I'm curious just to see like what type of stat line some of these guys are throwing out. Because some of them have definitely understimulated in these first few years of the franchise mode, or first number of years, but others have definitely stepped up. I didn't even realize I didn't put Hiromus back on that top line again, so we'll have to wait a little bit. I'm running Nakamura on the top line right now, but that's okay. And now we could obviously go back to the way it was. So Hiromus was getting to play a little bit on that second line. That's fine. I don't mind giving some guys a little bit more ice time than they deserve. Nakamura is also a really good goal scorer too, so I don't mind him being on that top line occasionally. So go with that, and that should be nice and set up. Perfect. Let's go back. And a couple more games left. Anaheim is going to be a 3-2 loss, but a day before the deadline, we are 36-22-4. Does have us still second place in the Metro, only behind the Penguins and just above the Flyers. So smack dab in the middle between two Pennsylvania-based teams. I'll call it a Philly cheesesteak in a way. I don't really know. Aside from that, though, yeah, we're still on pace to be just as good as the Bruins are right now. The Canadiens are still really doing well. Like, they've won so many President's Trophies in a row. I think they've won 4 in a row, and they're on pace to potentially win a 5th. So, hopefully they're an early exit in the playoffs, because obviously I don't want to really run into a team like that again. But let's go to the end of February, because we got 2 more games. 9-4 win over Buffalo. Damn, we've scored a lot of goals in some of these games. I'm really hoping that the offense improved a lot on this team in a way. And I'm curious to see, like I said, some people's numbers on this roster. As Washington on the deadline's a 4-1 win. We are now 38-22-4. And we have only 18 games left of the season, I think. And we're only 1 point back of the Penguins for the best team in the Metro. And only a few points off of the Canadiens, but they've played 2 less games than us. So we are definitely going to be a playoff team. The real question, obviously, is for how long. But I think this team is simulating better than last year, too, because I'm trying to remember what our record was last season, but it wasn't anything astronomically good. Like a few years ago, we had a better record. So I wonder if we're kind of getting back to those ways again. So let's go to the 14th, take March a little bit half and half, so to speak, and see if our team can continue to win. As Urquhart's been injured with a sore shoulder, that's not necessarily the injury I'd like to see, considering he is a top 4 defenseman on this team. But we will move. We'll move Ullman into the top 4 because he's a DFD, and I guess Maltby. I don't really want to play 2 OFDs next to each other. That's kind of a liability. Is that actually a -2, or is that just glitched out here? Let me double check. No, it is not a -2. Okay, good. All right, we can actually play 2 OFDs next to each other, but that seems like a questionable thing, so I'll let Maltby play with Pow instead, just because I don't really want to split up Pollock and Ullman until we actually have to. So let's do that, and let's see if we continue to win some games here while Urquhart's out. Urquhart's an important piece to this team, though, so we'll probably lose a few games, which looks like it's the case here early on. But he will relatively be returning soon, I think, or return relatively soon. But yeah, we're definitely not playing as strong without Urquhart in the lineup, as we lost majority of those games in that first half of the month. We are still above the wildcard spot, though, by 10 points, so we don't need to be getting nervous, but we definitely are falling off a little bit. But like I said, that might be good, because that means maybe a longer playoff run. Let's go through 4 more games, see if Urquhart returns soon, which he has. That's good news. Don't really want him getting re-injured, so we'll throw him back in instead of Maltby. Even though Jerry Maltby's a fun player sometimes, we'll take him out. Urquhart's up to an 87. Goddamn. Yeah, Urquhart's kind of surprised me with his growth, because he's only a medium 4, but he's almost like a low elite, and he got an injured with now a separated shoulder. Why is it letting me put players back in that are injured? Because usually it doesn't tell me that they're actually still injured. It usually tells me they're fully healthy. All right, we got to make sure we do not play Urquhart till he's fully healthy, because that seems like a complete liability for our team, is running a guy that gets injured and then he's re-injured again. So we got to be careful. At least he will be back still for the playoffs, so we got to let him get fully healthy first. We can't let him get injured again. There's 2 more wins. Okay, so we're starting to win some games, at least with the Urquhart out a little bit. He won't be back till April still, so he is going to miss the majority of this last bit of the regular season, but that's okay. As long as he's back for, like I said, the first round. So we got a couple more games. Have we clinched playoffs? Yes, we have. Okay, that's good. That's good. I was not expecting us to clinch before April 1st, but I will definitely take it as we might still hit right around 50 wins on the season because we're winning a lot as of late. We're on 46 wins with 4 games left to go. We're only 1 point back of the Flyers, 3 points back of the Penguins, and the Canadians are well ahead of us, so we're not going to catch up to them, I don't think, but we're still going to probably finish as one of the best teams in the entire league because we're better than every single Western Conference team right now. All right, Minnesota and New Jersey. Let's see how we do in these games. And Den, I think Urquhart should be fully healthy for that Islanders game. It says he's back right now, but I'm not going to put him in yet because I do not need him being re-injured as we win 2 more games. Is Urquhart ready for this Islanders game? Let's see. Let me go to the actual Islanders game itself. And there he, nope, that's an AHL injury. Let's just go replace player on that. It did not even notify me about this, so let me actually hide some stuff. I don't want to see stats that I want you guys to see stats. I need to go back to edit lines here, so that way I could quickly get our defensive core reset up again. I'm going to just do it with my face on the screen for the time being, just because I don't want anybody being spoiled on stats, and I don't want to be spoiled on my own. I'm kind of scrolling up as much as possible. Let's see, X, I think it was. Yeah, X opens the calendar. Perfect. I like that it's a nice shortcut instead, but there you go. I did not see who was leading us in points or anything. I got Urquhart back in. Let's go through these last 2 games. Our team's on a pretty good winning streak here near the end, which is kind of scary. We might end up winning the Metropolitan Division if we keep it up here. So Islanders and Canadians, that last game against the Canadians is going to be absolutely tough, but game against the Islanders with Urquhart back is a 6-3 win, as we have jumped up to first place in the Metro with that victory. If we win this next game, we win the Metropolitan Division. We are not going to catch the Canadians. They've definitely clinched the entire league with the President's Trophy again. This is going to be a tough last game of the season, but can we beat a great team like Montreal, who's on 50 wins? The answer is no, we can't. So we finished 49, 28, and 5, which finishes us with 103 points. The Flyers leapfrogged us in the last day of the season. So unfortunately, we finished second place in the Metro, but we are still so good that we're one of the best teams in the league and that we could go on a deep run, which is exciting. So let's get the rest of the regular season teams simulated as well. Emerson's already back for the AHL, which is good if they're going for another Calder Cup, which honestly, I'm not too sure if they are, but we will get him back in here because he was playing where Locke was. So get him in there. Also, Emerson looks like he's growing up to a 77, so yeah, he's probably going to be an NHL defenseman potentially next season. That's exciting. But all teams are officially done their season. Let's go full screen mode. Let me close my eyes. Make sure I'm not seeing anything below this point. I'm trying to go over to stats without looking at stats. There you go. Now I got it at stats. And I got it at standings, I think. And let's take a look at these standings. All right, in terms of the entire league, we finished as the 3rd best team in the NHL. We were nearly the 2nd best team, but Philadelphia passed us in the last day of the season. But still, that's a fantastic spot to be in, and definitely our best season yet in terms of simulation, I think, based on that. Obviously, the Habs are still a filthy team, but at some point, you'd expect them to drop off, I'm guessing. But the best Western team only had 100 points, which is funny, because there was a bunch of teams in the East, obviously, with over 100. So definitely the East was stronger. I guess the West was stronger after the fact. But the next best Eastern team was Boston after Pittsburgh. So I wonder how good Dave Antonio did. Like I said, we'll definitely take a look at Dave Antonio's stats. But best offensive team this season was us. Our offense has improved, and I'm guessing that's because of the third line, like I said, with Rankin and Fernandez. And I'm guessing it's also because of Polak. That's my guess why we're better offensively. But last season, our offense, I think, if I remember right, was 7th, or was it actually even good? I know our defensive play actually might have been 7th. Our offense might have been way worse than that. So this new coach could have changed things too, of course. But first in goals for is fantastic. So definitely a step up, a little bit better than the Montreal Canadiens in scoring goals as well. Love to see that. Goals against per game. We were the best defensive team as well. See, we didn't finish as number 1, but we were first in goals for, first in goals against. So our defensive play did not drop off, even without Dave Antonio. We allowed 11 less goals than the Vancouver Canucks, so that's fantastic. Power play percentage is still not good, so we still have really mediocre special teams. We were one of the worst teams on the power play at 13.8%, but number 1 in goals for, so great at 5-on-5, but not when we have that extra man. And then in terms of penalty kill percentage, 85.5 is just outside of the top 10, I think. So we had a good penalty kill. We were good on 5-on-5, but we did not have a good power play. And that's all I'm seeing right now. So that's good to see. All right, once again, dramatic reveal in terms of player stats because I don't really want to know how good some of these players did. I'm trying to close my eyes as much as possible. There we go. And let's take a look at some stats here. Wow. Okay, that's not who I expected in the slightest to be leading our centers. Roger Green, 78 points this season, including 31 goals. So Roger Green, I think he's almost ready to take Benak's job almost again. But Roger Green's been fantastic this season. He's been a really good top six forward. And I was not expecting it when I drafted him that he'd actually produce crazily, but his faceoffs improved a lot too. He's looking like a very solid player. So shout out to Roger Green at the age of 25. He's still signed for 3 more seasons after this at only 2.175. Great contract. Benac kind of dropped off a little bit. 67 points is still good. Of course, it's 6-7 again, but he definitely has been a little bit inconsistent, but as of late, I guess he has been more consistent. He's still a great player and all, but I don't know, like I said, how long-term he'll be with this team. He did score a big game-winning goal last year in overtime, in triple overtime that was. So I would like to hold on to him long-term still, kind of, but he is getting older and older, so he might be on the decline relatively soon. Fernandez had a really good rookie season without any power play time, 42 points. It would have been nice to give him power play time, but this team is so deep that it's really tough to get him power play time. But yeah, he's definitely kind of a hybrid production playmaker because he had 21 goals and 21 assists. So looking pretty good. Ranking on 39 points is pretty solid too. Last time he was in the NHL, I was a little bit skeptical because he only had 6 points in 82 games. That's why he got sent to the AHL for 3 years. But it looks like he's finally found that offensive game because that's all 5-on-5 as well. So eventually him and Fernandez should be on the power play. If Benak leaves his team, I would say for sure. Barrett on 23 points, not bad. I don't mind that whatsoever, especially considering he's only making 1.1 million. Mullen on 22 points in the last year of his contract ain't bad either. I would like to hold on to him, but he's a third-line scoring forward now. I don't really know if he's going to come back in the offseason, but he's still a really useful player in that bottom six. Left wing side of things, Klinga, 71 points, 42 goals. So for the first time, I think in his career, Rudolph Klinga is a 40-goal scorer. Yeah, he's been more of a 30-goal scorer, but he stepped up big time this season. Love to see it. That's what I like to see. A couple shorthanded goals as well. So shout out to good old Rudolph. Also, Jared Law, 47 points. How's that compare to last year? Way better than last year. And his best of his career, maybe, too. All right. He did have 172 penalty minutes, but he's picking up points. So I don't mind that. How much fights did Law have this season? Let's see. He had 22 fights. All right. So he had more fights than last year for sure. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Let's actually go to his box score stats or his game-by-game stats. I want to see what was the most penalty minutes he accrued in a single game. 10. He had 10 penalty minutes against Edmonton and Buffalo, 8 against Florida, 7 against Toronto, Colorado, and Calgary, but looks like he fought 2 people in Buffalo and Edmonton, at least. Every other game was like a 1 penalty and a minor penalty. Or 1 penalty and a fight, I should say. But there you go. Nichols, 1 assist in 5 games. He didn't obviously get to play a lot, which kind of sucks. But yeah, that's a decent season still for him, actually. It's not a lot of points, but it's still decent off the bench. And the lack of ice time that he would have been getting. Yeah, only 837. Looks like he brought some okay defensive play, like blocked a shot through a couple hits. But it would be nice to still be playing him, but I don't really know if there's going to be much of a chance. Like, he might stay as a career depth guy for the rest of this team. So, our time on this team. So, shout out to Nicholas anyways. Or Nichols, I should say. Right wing side of things, Hromis on 74 points. Pretty good season for Hromis, 32 goals. Which is a step up from multiple seasons in a row. So he's definitely finding his goal scoring and offense as of late. 20 power play points. So, like that from Hromis. Nakamura had a 60-point season. Damn, that's a big step up from Nakamura. He is a pending RFA. And he is going into the last year of RFA status. He is now listed only as a low top 6 forward. But he is still listed as a top 6, basically, like a second liner. He's still a really good goal scorer, though. Like, he scores 20 goals pretty consistently, so I would still like to sign him long term, but who knows if he'll actually want to sign long term, because every type of year we get to the offseason, he only wants like a 1-year contract. So, and then McElhinney stepped up big time this year too, 59 points for McElhinney. He's still listed as a second liner, but he has not grown it a lot, which is surprising. But he's still been pretty useful. And of course, his takeaway numbers are usually really good, right? Yeah. His takeaway numbers have been really helpful for this team. So I think he does a lot more than just pick up points. And lastly, Bradford, 24 points and a +1. So we weren't too sure how Bradford would play as a fourth liner. He did not lose morale due to ice time really that much. Actually, he did, but he didn't drop off, I should say. But he did pick up some okay point totals for the lack of ice time, and he was a plus player. So I don't know how we're going to use him next year, but we're going to have to find a way to use him next year somehow. I just don't know exactly how yet. From a defensive standpoint, Paco, 56 points. Good season from Mr. Paco. Not enough to win himself a Norris, but still a good season nonetheless. Yeah, he's looking good still. So he's not definitely as good as Olli Houghton, who I used to have in my Islanders years, but Paco is still really nice for our defensive core. Lee hit 50 points in back-to-back seasons as well. Lee's been actually a really good two-way. Like, he wasn't picking up a lot of points till last season, but he's finding that defensive game as well, which is exciting. Powell on 28 points plus 43. Powell did really good on that second pairing defensively and also brought some good offense. He almost put up the same amount of numbers as Dave Antonio did on our team last year, so I like that a lot from Powell. No power play points, of course, but he's still looking decent. Polak had 27 points, was plus 29, so Polak did well. He's already listed now as a top 4 defenseman at 20. That's an interesting development because everybody in the top 4 is already under contract, I think, for a while still. So Polak will have to play top 6, but you will need to give him a decent chunk of power play time. But yeah, he looked like he had a really good season this year. Only 4 power play points, but he found his defensive game, still picked up some good offensive numbers. Actually still scored 9 goals despite being a 2.5-star shooter. So I think he could still be a really good defenseman at some point. Urquhart, 22 points plus 29 is good. Ullman on 9 points plus 29 is also good. And then off the bench or off the press box, whatever you want to call him, Jerry Maltby, 3 points in 14 games plus 5. So the plus minus on all the defenders is fantastic. The fact that we are the best defensive team, though, also means that this could be the last year for sure for Forster on this team, because there's a chance he could win a Vezina, maybe based on his numbers. And if he does win a Vezina, he's going to be asking for a lot of money, and we have a lot of goalies. So we have to make a tough decision this offseason, probably. But from our goaltending standpoint, a 910 save percentage and a 2.48 from Forster. That's pretty good. I don't know if it's enough to win him a Vezina because he had not that much wins, but he was good. And Simic was great as well as a backup. 16-9-2 with 3 shutouts and 918 save percentage and a 2.41. So both these goalies looking really good going into the playoffs. So we'll probably obviously be starting Forster for game 1, but there's a chance Simic might get some playoff games in as well. And then Forster picked up 2 more assists. Simic picked up an assist of his own. I like it. All right. Well, we're a really good defensive team and a really good goal scoring team, apparently. And it's kind of crazy that we're the best offensive team and that we were led by Roger Green, because I didn't expect us to be the best offensive team, but we have such good depth scoring and that helped our team out a lot because nobody's point per game on his team. We had 140 goal scorer, 230 goal scorers. We had 320 goal scorers and a bunch of guys over 10, 4 more guys over 10. The lowest goal scorer on this team that played every single game was basically Bradford and Barrett on 8 goals on offense. And then from a defensive standpoint, we had 2 10-goal scorers, 3 more guys that nearly hit 10 goals, and a couple that didn't really score a lot. But I think this is definitely the best version of our team we've had up to this point. All right, I quickly want to also go to Boston just to take a look at how Dave Antonio did, and we'll take a look at the entire league. So Dave Antonio played 80 games, had 30 points, and was a plus 20 with 99 penalty minutes. All right, nothing crazy, but it is basically similar to what he did with us last year. Yeah, very similar, I should say. So he's pretty consistent, and obviously, though, he's getting 12.89 million, which is a lot, but he's still good. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's definitely... I don't know if I would pay him that much type of money. I know I could have paid him way less to keep it with us, but I wanted to see how he did against us out of curiosity during the season because obviously that'd be kind of neat to see how he did against us. So we'd be on the very bottom because I think since we're a generated team, yeah, he played 2 games against us, did not pick up a single point, but was +2, had 1 shot on goal. So he was not super effective against us, but that's okay. That's okay. We don't really want him to be effective against us. All right, so there's Dave Antonio. Let's go to the entire league stats just to see who was leading the league in points and all that. I know this is probably going to be a little bit of a longer episode again. So in terms of the entire league for points, the most points was Connor Bedard with 96 points, including 57 goals. In second place was this generated guy by the name of Eugene Ellington at the age of 26. I don't think I've seen him up there before. 94 points, 49 goals. Parento was up there at the age of 21 with 94 points and 47 goals. That guy's already a beast. 94 overall at 21. God damn. It's insane. And then Matty Beniers was up there. And then there's a pretty big drop off to Wyatt Johnston, who's now in New York. Then in terms of who else was the best goal scorer other than Bedard? Next person was Ellington. Literally barely anybody scored after him, I guess. All right. Best defenseman for points this season is going to be Pavel Mintyukov. I was not expecting that. 81 points in 82 games. Lane Hudson's probably still going to win the Norris though because of his plus-minus. Zane Parekh up there. Quinn Hughes still in Vancouver, even though in real life he obviously got dealt. Rasmus Dahlin's up there. Owen Power. All right, Boganecki, this 25-year-old defenseman. But yeah, obviously Paco is not the most elitist defenseman offensively, but he's still an important piece to this team. I don't know how much he's going to cost at the end of his contract, but he's going to hopefully help us out this playoff run. Then from a goaltending perspective, most wins was Joshua Ravensburg in Vancouver. Most shutouts was Thomas Dackel of the Kings with 9. Damn, that's a lot. Best save percentage by a starter was Moskowitz in Boston with a .930 save percentage. So Dave might have helped him play great defensively. And then best goals against average by a starter is going to be Moskowitz. So I think Moskowitz might end up winning the Vezina. Forster's probably a finalist for it, but his save percentage was a bit too low. And then his goals against average was one of the best. But yeah, that save percentage is definitely not as strong as somebody like Moskowitz or Ravensburg. So a 910 save percentage, I guess, is not actually that great in this universe. Most goals by a goalie, there was no goalie goals. That's interesting. Most assists was Moskowitz again, Boumedienne, and Breen with 3 apiece. All right. Best rookie this season was per Viking stat, who I think was the first overall pick that we said was like McDavid, right? Yeah, he was. He picked up 55 points in 82 games. He's actually wearing number 96, so I guess McDavid might be still playing because I think he was drafted. He had said he was number 97. Cork had 54 points for the Jets as a 22-year-old rookie. There's Dika, and Fernandez finished as a top 10 rookie or top 5 rookie even in points. Almost led them in goals too. So Marcos Fernandez was definitely a great steal. He had 8 game-winning goals. I didn't even realize that. So yeah, Fernandez was the most clutch rookie probably out there. Any crazy good rookie goalies this season? Silvergard, 29 wins. He had a .917 save percentage as well. That's actually pretty solid for a goalie. He is 26 though, so, and he's only 80 overall, so another one of those kind of cheese goaltenders, I guess. But it looks like he had a good rookie year for the Sharks. All right, so there is that. Let's now take a look at obviously who we're going to be going up against in the playoffs because we know we've made it. It will be let's see, is it a team we played? It'll be the Pittsburgh Penguins. All right. I think we've never played Pittsburgh, right? If I'm not mistaken. I can't even remember. Maybe we did in our early year, the first year we made the playoffs. I can't remember, to be honest, but Pittsburgh in the first round. That's interesting. So during the regular season, a little comparison since we actually have the matchup part pulled up. They were third in goals for, we were first. So both of our teams were fantastic offensively during the season, but their goals against was 19th, ours was first. So they are probably a cheese team in terms of goaltending. Tough to say, though. In terms of the power play percentage, theirs was 15th. Ours was 28th, so they had a better power play than us. But obviously, we had a better penalty kill, 11th to their 21st. So, yeah, I don't really know what to make of it just based on that. But let's take a look at their roster and see what they have on it. I don't know if we've played them. I don't think we have. I just have seen some of their players up there in stats before. But first line is going to be Joachim Kamel with Rutger McGrody, and he's been kind of dropping off quite a bit. He used to be a really good player early in his franchise mode because I remember, yeah, I was back here 116 points, and then he had some 90-point seasons. But since then, he's been more of a point-per-game kind of player. but he's still fantastic, and he's still kind of scary to watch out for. So he has won a Hart in his career, but it's all he's won. This is the last year of his contract at $22.5 million, which might be the highest paid contract in the league. So it'll be interesting to see if he heads to the free agent market after this playoff run. They also have a Generty guy named by the name of Amir Atkinson, who was a 22nd overall pick in 2031. In terms of their second line, Andre Becker, I can't even remember how his name's pronounced. Vyacheslav Prohorkin, who's 28, and Luke Evangelista, who's already 36. So, not necessarily the strongest top six. Third line, they have Len Dryden. They also have Otto Stenberg and Sven Holmqvist. And a fourth line of Hendrix Lapierre, Lelke, Del Belbaluz, and Lenny Hamanaho. So, they might have an injury on offense because the way that they says they're one of the best offensive teams in the league is kind of surprising to me because most of these guys are not like full-on first liners. These are all like third lines depth forwards, right? Yeah. Like even Bekar, who's in the top six, is a fourth liner. Technically, the guys to watch out for, I guess, is Kamel, who's a second liner. McGroarty's a first liner, and that's it. So they must have an injury, or they're just a team that somehow gets really good depth scoring. From a defensive standpoint, they have Zeev Boom, who obviously was part of that Quinn Hughes trade. He's now in Pittsburgh in this universe and has been there for quite some time since he was with Minnesota. He's decent offensively, but nothing crazy. They also have Matthias Prospel, which I think I remember him getting drafted. Yeah, it was the Rangers. I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. They also have Cesar Bordelot, Jackson Lacombe still playing at 37, Pascal Gervais-Chouinard, and Ariel Rivers. So the defensive core is solid. It's not bad in terms of depth, but like I don't really consider it's an elite defensive core because nobody has X factors. The only guy on their team so far with X factors is McGroarty still, so it's a weird team. From a goaltending perspective, they do have Kimo Ruutu as an 85 overall high starter, former fourth rounder in 2031. Let's see his stats. A 911 save percentage this season. Last year he was a backup though. Actually, no, he got dealt. He got dealt at the deadline from Buffalo. Huh. Interesting. And he's never played an NHL playoff game before. Well, that's kind of interesting. They also have Olaf Glifford. Never heard of this guy ever. He's a real player apparently, but he's their backup. From a scratch perspective, they don't have any injuries, but there's Gaspard Dubois. There is Michael Griffin. We'll say the brother Peter Griffin or something like that. And Josh Doan. Or this could be the brother of Morgan Griffin from my Houston Sharpshooters draft to glory all those years ago. How does this guy simulate? 12 points in 63 games. That's not too bad. But he's definitely nothing crazy. I'm surprised they don't have an injury, though. Like, how did this team be that good offensively during the season? Like, how many goals did Atkinson pick up? 69 points and 43 goals as an 81. Wow. All right. So they probably have better depth scoring than it looks. But we should be able to beat them, but they could be a cheese team, too. So that's a bit scary. Didn't they finish with the same amount of points as us technically during the season? Because, let's see. I think they did, right? Let me double check the standings. Yeah, we both had 103 points. But we scored more goals than they did. We allowed way less. Their power play was better, obviously, as we saw. And then our penalty kill was better. Yeah, I got to go to their player stats from the season. I'm very curious on who was scoring for them in that lineup other than McGroarty and Atkinson. And Kamel, probably. So from a forward perspective, yeah, McGroarty led the way. Kamel had 71 points. Atkinson had 69. Evangelista still had 63 too. Damn, all right. Dryden still produces as well. Same with Bishar. Bishar had 55 points as a guy that's listed as a fourth liner. Damn. Same with Otto Stenberg. He had 52 points. All right, so they have great depth scoring, but they have problems keeping the puck out of the net. I am really shocked. Like, and they had 4 defensemen over 30 points, almost a fifth. Wow, all right. Yeah, this is a weird team. A very weird team. And it kind of scares me that they're that weird. Like, I feel like we should be able to beat them, but they could be a team that beats out anybody randomly. So, could be a more even series than we actually anticipate. All right, final thing I want to take a look briefly at the AHL team in the playoffs, which I don't know if they did. Let's take a look at this here. Did they make the playoffs? The answer to that is yes, they did. Okay, so they made it back to the playoffs. That's good news. Who led the way, and is anybody getting crazy stat lines here? Miller led the way. Obviously, he's a fringe NHLer, so it kind of makes sense. Kuda had 40 points. That's good. He is getting closer to NHL ready. Nobody else really on forward side of things that matter. What about defensively? Emerson on 48. Richardson at 35. We know that he's pretty much ready to go almost. Rakunik, how are you looking? 70 overall. That's not bad for a low 4. And then goaltending. And Bull posted a 917, and same with Coach. Damn. The goalies were really good again in the AHL. 75 overall for Ambul. Like, Ambul is almost listed as like a depth goaltender or a backup goalie. So Gotch might head to free agency in the offseason potentially. And then Coach is a 72 already now as well. Our goalies are doing really well. I'm not too sure if it's just because we have good goaltending coaches, but seems like everything's simulating quite well in both the NHL and the AHL at the moment, which is quite exciting at the moment. I actually also did want to take a look at how good Brad Andrews did in Utah, just because I took a look at Antonio. We might as well take a look at Andrews as well. And then that'll be it for this episode. So Andrews, obviously making $6 million in Utah, 28 points in 74 games. So he wasn't healthy all year round again, which was a constant problem the last 2 years with us, but he did pick up a career high in points. So shout out to Brad Andrews. Like I said, I do like this guy, but we had to let him go just because of the fact that we had too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. But his health is definitely seems to be a consistent problem, as he only does have 80 durability. So poor guy might not have a super long career, but he is at least going to be able to play with Utah for quite a while before that retirement probably happens. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Europe United Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to round 1 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had the same amount of points as us during the season, despite them looking quite weak. It's going to be an interesting first round, I think, and I'm hoping that obviously our team can go on a pretty damn good run, because obviously near the end of the season, we finished on a really strong note, obviously going 9-1 in our last 10 games, so that's a bit scary, but I do think our team hopefully learned from its mistakes a bit from last year, and hopefully we can find a way to go far again this season. So let us know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.